Hey, what's going on, guys? This is AndrewChicken, and welcome back to another video. The new Dawnforge update is here, and today we're going to be summarizing all of the important changes that arrived in this patch. As always, if you find this video to be helpful, please consider subscribing because we're trying to reach 60,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and let's get started. Now up first is the highlight feature of this update, the new map Dawnforge. This is a pyre-themed siege map, and it is absolutely incredible. Easily one of the best maps in the game, and it is also just such a relief to finally have a new map after 3 years of basically being bone dry when it comes to map updates. We get some reworks here and there that sometimes tweak the layout a little bit in small ways, but this is a full-on map, and it's something we have desperately needed for years. And this map looks absolutely incredible. You can jump off the map here, but it'll just teleport you back here and spawn, and it looks just, it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And also this map has an incredible layout, and it also has some unique interactable elements that can change the way that the map is played and really create a lot of fun dynamics for you to play around with. So the first one is, of course, the button. You can press the button, and it will summon the sun. Now this sun will descend down onto the point, and it will sear the scalps off of the poor souls who find themselves sulking on the point. And yeah, it also summons down walls, which will block the view from the high ground. So all three of these high areas will be blocked and will not be able to shoot down onto the point. And after a little bit of time, they just go away, and the sun will reset back here, and you can press the button again. Also noteworthy, you can fly over pretty much every wall on this map, which is a huge plus for me. It creates a lot of interesting flank routes if you are playing someone with high mobility. And there are also generally just a ton of routes in general that you can take on this map, which is something that I absolutely love. Also, there is, of course, the Forge over here, which is the other major interactable element that is unique to this map. This is a brand new map hazard, and it also serves as interactive kind of dynamic cover and an elevator to get to this high ground. If you don't want to take this portal, you can just walk over onto this ramp and then wait for the Forge to come down. Don't die in the process to the bots, and then jump your way up here. And yeah, it's really cool. And if you're playing someone like Ashe or Khan, you can potentially knock someone into this Forge, and if you time it right, you'll kill them, but if you don't time it right, they'll have enough time to escape, or you'll just throw them directly into the hammer itself. And then this is also the first siege map to introduce a jump pad. So there's a jump pad here to reach the high ground near spawn, and there's also a more important jump pad right here, which you can use to access the high ground that takes you directly above the objective. So you can go up here, and then you instantly have eyes on the objective. You can go into this room, or you can sneak behind the bot IO and assassinate her. Oh, she jumped away. So yeah, this is a really amazing map. There are so many places you can fly to. You can even like kind of use Drogos and fly over here to get some cover. And yeah, there are just so many routes you can take on this map if you have high mobility, like you're playing Seven or Eevee or Drogos. But if you're playing someone like Tyra, you're also not punished too much because it's very accessible and it's very easy to reach a lot of the important high grounds. It's just you won't be able to access everything as easily as you would if you're playing someone with a lot of mobility. And of course, you guys know how I like my maps that allow mobility to shine, and this is easily one of the best maps in the game for allowing mobility to really pop off and do some amazing things. And so I absolutely appreciate that. I appreciate this new map layout, and it's amazing to have a new map. I hope we get more maps in the future, and I hope that it doesn't take 3 years for the maps to arrive. Because yeah, it has taken far too long for this map to come out. Again, Evil Mojo is kind of understaffed in the map designing department. They didn't even have a map designer for a while. I think, again, they only have one map designer. So yeah, it's a bit unfortunate, but we finally have this map, and if they can keep cranking out more maps and release like a new map every year, that would be something truly phenomenal. Next up, let's talk about cosmetics. We have the Event Pass. This has skins for Tyra and Rom. So we have Eternal Emissary, which is the default Tyra skin that you unlock at the start of the Event Pass, and it's an angelic style skin, sort of similar to the Archangel skin, but in more of a Pyro Warrior format. Honestly, it's not my favorite Tyra skin ever. It certainly does look nice, but Tyra didn't need another skin, and it also fits the similar aesthetic like Archangel, like I already said, so it's not really too unique for Tyra either. But if you like it, you'll like it, and it's absolutely a high-quality skin worth picking up. And then next up, we have Rami, otherwise known as the Harlequin. Now this is a gender bend Rom skin that turns him into a dominant demonette, and it has a really awesome looking weapon. However, she kind of is just rocking the villager pose the entire time with her arms just kind of tucked in underneath her chest like that, which is a bit strange. And the arms kind of just do their own thing. They're magically animated, I guess. The effects on the skin are really nice, the weapon is really nice, but for me, I don't really care for the skin itself. There's also gold, bounty coins, crystals, etc. in the event pass, and there's also Deathless Emissary Tyra, which is the purple recolor of her original skin in this event pass, and then there is Eternal Devilry. So yeah, this is the purple recolor of the Harlequin skin, which also looks alright. Again, for me, the weapon is the best part of the skin. The rest of it, I don't really care for. There's also a brand new psychotic Kasumi skin called Love Struck, where she is obsessed with somebody? I don't know who, but she also stabs a voodoo doll of this Rei skin that was released about a year ago. And honestly, I am absolutely happy with that because I don't like the Rei skin, so stabbing it to death repeatedly sounds very nice to me. And it's a very high quality skin. Sadly, she doesn't use the butcher knife on her back to stab the doll, she just uses a needle instead, but it's still a really good skin for Kasumi. Only problem is it's Kasumi, but still very well executed. And rest in peace Caspian, because he doesn't have a proper skin like Kasumi does. Speaking of Caspian, he did get a skin, it's just not a proper epic or legendary skin that changes him in any fundamental way. This is a recolor of the Change of Heart skin. See, he also has his shirt off, and this has a few different elements, like the skull on his belt is different from, well, whatever this is. But yeah, otherwise it's just some different tattoos, different color schemes, and that's about it. It's just a recolor, and it is a nice recolor. It's available for 300 crystals, which is very cheap, very affordable, but ultimately, poor Caspian, man, he does not have any unique skins whatsoever. They're all just recolors. Very nice recolors, no doubt, but still just recolors. We're waiting for a proper Caspian skin still, and hopefully he gets one next patch. The last skin to talk about is Draconian Huntress Ash, which will be available from the Bounty Store. It is not currently in the Bounty Store, which makes no sense, but it will be there eventually, and this is a very nice skin. I like to think of this as the recolor of the gold skin, because it's still very bedazzled and very golden, very shiny, but it has a much better color scheme. It's very vibrant, lots of contrast going on in this skin, and it's a recolored version of her default skin, which has some extra things on it, like these horns on her pauldrons. She has a lot more horns just in general. Different hairstyle, but you'll notice that the shape of the armor is fundamentally the same in a lot of places. She's also missing her arm armor, which is a weird thing to say. And she also, with this skin, has the Skadron voice pack instead of the default voice pack, so there's a bit of Skadron thrown in here too. Just a really solid skin. Honestly, one of my favorites of this update, and I will be picking this up for Ash as soon as it's available. One more very important thing for me to point out that they didn't really talk about in the patch notes is that the Siege of Ascension Peak music pack is here, which you can't actually obtain this in any way, which is strange, but it now is showing up here in the music packs. It wasn't here before, and we noticed this on the PTS. I assumed they would have an ability to purchase this in-game once the patch went live, but still can't purchase this. Maybe it's a bug, I don't know. If a Paladins dev sees this video, please allow me to purchase this, because I will buy it. I will turn music back on. I have had music off for years. I will turn it back on if you add this. Please, let me buy it. This is the best music pack they have ever created, and I am so excited to see this actually show up in-game, because it means hopefully we'll be able to use it soon. Now, as far as general updates are concerned, there are a few major ones. First of all, Team Deathmatch, you'll notice, looks different. It's now called Choose Any, and that's because this mode now allows you to choose any champion, even if someone on your team already picked them. So you can have a team full of 5 Androxus players if you want to. In my opinion, this kills the game mode, but I'm sure some people will like it, and they even updated the splash art to reflect it, although in training it's still the old one. I'm not really sure why that is. You can also purchase event pass levels with gold, so if you don't want to spend 70 crystals to unlock a level, you can spend 70,000 gold instead. Now, I could be really funny here and purchase 50,000 gold with 70,000 gold, and I think I will, just because, There we go, I did it. Guys, I spent 70,000 gold to get 50,000 gold. That's a major profit. Wow, that's incredible. But yeah, if you have a bunch of gold lying around and, you know, you have like a week left in the event pass and you're hurrying to get it finished, you can spend that gold and get the skins that you want on time, which is a really, really nice thing, and I'm very glad to see this feature implemented because it finally gives us veterans something to spend our gold on. And lastly, they finally added the ability to block players, or at least block players in an easy fashion. You've actually already been able to block players by using the system chat and typing /block and then the name of the player you want to block. But they added a proper UI element for that, so if I wanted to block a gamer girl, I could block a gamer girl, and then they will show up in the Blocks tab, where you can conveniently just unblock them, like this. And, oh, she's still on my friends list, actually. That's interesting. And there's also a way to block players just from the stats screen, so if you end a match and you just hate somebody so much that you want to block them, you can press this big red button that shows up right next to the report area, and you can block them that way as well. So very convenient UI, and this is a welcome addition to Paladins for sure. So now let's move on to balance, and we're first going to take a look at the item store because a few items have gotten some changes. So Kill to Heal got buffed in a pretty major way. It is no longer affected by Cauterize, which is extremely controversial. I'm not much of a fan of it myself, but it has made the item extremely powerful. On the PTS, it's still scaled by 300 per tier, but it's gone down to scaling by 250 per tier, which is still extremely powerful. If you ramp it up to level 3, you'll be getting 750 healing every time you get a kill, even when 90% Cauterize is affecting you. So yeah, Kill to Heal is an extremely powerful item now, and it is really good on characters who can get a lot of eliminations, such as Buck, who is really good at snowballing kills, or Rom, who gets an elimination every time he heals someone with Subservience and then they get a kill. So he can get eliminations without even shooting someone directly because his teammate got a kill and he was healing them. So Kill to Heal is really good on a lot of champions now, and you should definitely consider picking this item up in the future. Rejuvenate also got buffed to 10% per tier, so it'll max out at 30% now. It originally was going to get a price nerf, but that nerf has been reverted, so it still scales at 200, 400, 600 like it normally does. And lastly, Lethality has gotten a major buff, so Lethality now lasts longer, 3.5 seconds instead of 2.5 seconds, but it also has the additional effect of increasing your jump height by up to 180% after getting an elimination. Now, this could stack extremely well with characters who already have ways to jump pretty high, such as Pip with Weightless, Rei with her passive, or Vatu with his jump card, although really you don't use that card that often. But this is an interesting buff. I don't know if this item will become meta, but it is certainly way better than it was last patch. So now let's talk about champion balance changes, and up first is Betty La Bomba. So she got a damage buff. She now deals 700 damage per shot instead of 650 damage per shot. This was originally going to be 750 damage, but after hearing feedback on the PTS, they bumped it down to 700, so still a net positive overall, and she can now 3-shot characters a lot more effectively. Of course, we don't 3-shot there, but with Fiery Disposition, well, she is going to be doing far more damage. So, 1, 2, 3, Victor's dead with some health to spare. So yeah, this is a very powerful damage buff for Betty, and she is going to be even more dominant than she already was, which, I mean, she wasn't like the craziest damage character ever, but she was a really good tank buster, and now she's going to be an even better tank buster, but also even better against squishy champions, which is her major weakness. Also, another thing, while we're here, you can toggle third person in the shooting range only by clicking this button that's here in the escape menu. So if you press escape, you can toggle third person. Looks like it's still bugged to where you need to press it twice in order to go back into first person, but if you want to see your character in third person, there is an easy option to do that now, which is really nice. Next up, Corvus got a major card buff to Shadow Tribunal. This card is now twice as effective, so instead of giving an additional 12.5% of the healing done to other allies, it now gives 25% additional healing. Now, I can't really showcase this in the shooting range because it specifically applies to people who have the mark, but I'm not directly healing with my right click, so it doesn't work on this Fernando. As you see, he's not getting any extra healing apart from the usual that he would be getting already, but if I had a friendly Makoa right here who did not have the mark and then I healed him, Fernando would get way more healing than usual because he's marked and I'm using Shadow Tribunal at level 5. Fernando's talent Scorch has been buffed, so the initial impact of the fireball now deals 35% extra damage instead of 30% extra damage. The subsequent target scaling has not been changed, but because the initial hit is higher, it ultimately means that these subsequent hits are in fact dealing more damage. It's also supposed to decrease the cooldown by 1 second, but that appears to be bugged. So I am using this build, which has Incinerate at level 5, which reduces the cooldown of the Fireball by roughly 2 seconds, and the default cooldown of the Fireball is 7 seconds. So without this talent, it should be a 5-second cooldown. With this talent, it should be a 4-second cooldown, but as you see, it is a 5-second cooldown. So the cooldown reduction isn't really working, but the extra damage is very nice. Ultimately, though, you'll probably still want to run Aegis because the utility of that talent is simply far superior. Imani got 2 very small buffs. Frostbolt now does 10 extra damage per shot, up to 420. Haha, funny number. But also, Pyromania got a pretty nice buff. Ultimately not the buff it needs, but a nice buff nonetheless. You generate mana faster with Pyromania. So you can do this burst more frequently, because as you see, if I hit Fernando once, I get about 1/3 of my mana bar, and if we hit him 3 times, bam, and then the next shot is bam bam, 2 fireballs back to back. As opposed to the default mana generation, which looks something like this. So I hit Victor once, we get a very small amount of mana. So yeah, this is kind of twofold. The mana is already higher if you hit multiple people with Pyromania because you're doing damage to multiple targets and thus doing more damage per Pyreball, but also the inherent generation of mana is higher with Pyromania, so it's kind of like a double effect, and you get Fireballs way more quickly with that talent. Ultimately, though, it's probably still not worth running the talent because Pyromania, well, it nerfs your single target damage by a lot. Considering how long it takes to charge up a Fireball, this is a really low rate of DPS, and even though the AoE damage is nice, you're probably better off picking a blaster for the AoE, and if you want single target damage, this talent isn't for you. So, I would still like to see the damage with this talent increased back up to 1,000, but, well, I mean, this is a small buff in the meantime, that will make it feel a little bit better. Inara got a power shift that nerfed Tremors and Treacherous Ground, but buffed Mother's Grace. So Earthen Guard now only provides 30% increased healing instead of 40% increased healing, but Mother's Grace now provides an additional 20% bonus healing on top of that, bringing the total with Mother's Grace to 50% as opposed to the 40% it was before across all 3 talents. So you get way more healing now with Mother's Grace than you do with the other 2 talents. Kasumi got a slew of changes to make her feel better to play as and to play against. So to start off with, her movement ability now provides 75% damage reduction instead of 55% damage reduction, making her very, very tanky. This is definitely very nice for her, and it'll make her very hard to kill while using this ability. However, her primary fire has been nerfed, so the targeting cone is much tighter, but still pretty loose. We can aim pretty far to the side of these guys and still hit them. Like, look at how far away I am from the Ying right now, and I can still hit her. On top of that, her damage itself has been nerfed. So at 5 stacks now, we are only doing 400 damage per attack, and Savage Tear is still able to kill, but that damage nerf does affect that as well. The actual card that buffs Savage Tear has not been nerfed. Essence Drain still provides an additional 10% base damage, but they updated the talent description, or the card description, to properly reflect that. Kasumi's primary fire is now supposed to deal double damage to deployed shields and deployables themselves, but it appears to be a bit bugged. It works on shields properly, but most deployables are unaffected, like Vivian's Sensor Drone as an example. But double damage is effectively what you get at 5 curse stacks, so the way you can think of it is, well, against shields now, she has just an instant 5 stacks, so she will always be doing max damage per second versus shields now, as if it had 5 stacks on it. So, all of a sudden now, Wrecker isn't a total throw pick on her. Another important new feature for Kasumi is that her victims who have curse stacks on them will actually have a reveal on Kasumi. So you can see that eye above my head, I am revealed to the Ying right now, and as soon as the curse stack expires, I am no longer revealed. So this is a champion-specific reveal. You can kind of think of it as Lex's retribution target, but in reverse. So instead of Lex having a reveal on the target has a reveal on Lex, or in this case, Kasumi. So this will kind of help counteract the fact that Kasumi has no directional sound by design, so you'll have a bit of an easier time seeing her. And also, if she attacks you and then tries to retreat behind cover, you'll actually have the advantage on her because you'll be able to see her until the stack expires. So this is a major nerf to Kasumi overall. Also, the Spirit Lure now properly turns your head to face whoever triggered the lure, as you can see there. And, well, you can't see it there, but the fear properly will put people in third person, as it is supposed to. And the last important change to Kasumi is that unfinished business will now work properly and will not be affected by Cauterize. This was actually affected by Cauterize before, and it made the talent worse than it should be. It's still ultimately not a very good talent compared to Spirit Bombs or Empowered Curse, because, well, you can't recast your body and soul to teleport to your soul. You can only recast to teleport to your body, so increasing the duration is actually kind of a bad thing because you stay in one spot for longer and are thus more vulnerable. Lillith got a pretty nice buff this patch that actually makes her way more fun to play. So swarms now have a lot more permanence to them. They now last for an additional 2¼ seconds, but the cooldown has been increased by 1 second, which means that you're not spamming them as frequently, but also you can do this. You can full charge a swarm, and then you can full charge another swarm, and for a brief moment, have 2 full charge swarms affecting the same target, and if you combine that with a Hex as well, you're going to be dumping healing into them like there is no tomorrow. It is actually some pretty insane healing. And hey, if they combine it with the newly buffed Rejuvenate, well, that tank is never going to die as long as they stand inside the swarms. But also, yeah, it means that you're not spamming as much, so you can spend much more time shooting things and repositioning and just worrying about other things instead of just channeling Swarm all the time, so it makes her feel much better to play as well. Another very nice thing is that you can charge a Swarm, and while you're charging the Swarm, you can press your movement ability now, which is just a really nice quality of life thing. Although a bit awkward for me because both of the buttons are on my mouse, so I kind of just squeeze my mouse whenever I want to do this tech. Maldamba got a very nice improvement to his healing output, so Spirit's Chosen now provides an additional 100 upfront burst, going up from 250 to 350. So we can take a look at this Fernando here, heal him, and that does a 435 burst now because you're combining it with the first tick of 85 for Mending Spirits. So he just feels way better to heal with overall, and his healing is much, much more impactful. Pip's Catalyst now does 35% extra damage instead of just 30%, which means he now does 810 damage per shot, which is, yeah, a pretty nice buff. Nothing super major, but it will make damage Pip feel just a little bit better to play as, especially when stacked up against damage characters who do a lot more damage than him. Rei got a pretty nice buff to her chain heal, so it now travels 50% faster, meaning that you'll get heals to people who need them more quickly, but also it'll go on cooldown much more quickly, which means it comes off cooldown much more quickly, which means, in general, it's just much more spammable. Also, she got a card change to Arcane Maelstrom to make it much, much better. It now reduces cooldowns by a percentage instead of just a flat half a second, meaning it scales much, much better on champions with long cooldowns, such as Octavia with her Distortion Field, Grok with his totems, etc. Ultimately, it still doesn't really seem like a super great card to run, because you're giving it out so infrequently. It's on Envelop, and Envelop has a pretty massive cooldown, so it's a little bit of cooldown reduction every 14 seconds, but it is a much better option now than it was before. This is a very important change for controller players in particular. Terminus's Power Siphon no longer has aim assist applied to it, meaning that your crosshair will not be dragged to the Power Siphon and be feeding it indefinitely. You'll actually be able to aim around this thing now, which I have never had a problem with, I have never experienced because I'm not a controller player, but for the controller players in my audience, well, embrace this change because this will make Terminus feel a lot better to play against. Not only did Tyra get a new skin, but she also got a buff to her ultimate, so it now activates faster. They reduced the pre-fire by half, so yeah, you can actually kind of cancel the animation of it, which looks really, really weird. She just gets halfway through sticking the clip in and then just instantly starts chewing. They really should have sped up the animation for this, realistically, because, yeah, that just looks weird and choppy, but, yeah, her ultimate will have a bit more impact. From the get-go, you won't have as much of a wind-up to it, which is very, very nice. And we saved one of the best balance changes for last. Ying got a massive, massive buff to her healing output because the cooldown of Shatter has been reduced by 1 second. Now, of course, this does buff all her playstyles, but in particular, it buffs Life Exchange the most because it reduced the cooldown of the ability by pretty much 40% when all is said and done. So here's how the math works. Shatter had its cooldown decrease from 4 seconds down to 3 seconds. Life Exchange bumps that back up to 4 seconds. But you run Life Exchange with Brittle 5, which reduces the cooldown by 2.5 seconds, and now all of a sudden, you have a 1.5 second long cooldown instead of a 2.5 second long cooldown. So this is way, way faster. This is basically like if we had Chronos 3 with the previous heal, and now if we do get Chronos 3, well, Fernando's dead because I was buying Chronos 3, but if we get Chronos 3, this ability has like a 1 second cooldown. Look at how fast you can spam this. This is insane healing output. This is actually more healing output than Ceres, believe it or not. Because even though they share the same cooldown now, 1.5 seconds, Ying's heal happens instantly and is an 800 heal, whereas Ying's is channeled and puts out 1500 healing over an additional 1.5 seconds. So over 3 seconds, Ying is able to use the ability twice for 1600 healing, while over those same 3 seconds, Ceres is doing 1500 healing, and it's just spread across the latter 1.5 seconds. So yeah, this is a pretty monstrous healing buff. She's already out healing Ceres just with Life Exchange alone, let alone adding the illusions on top of it. Look at how effortlessly we're able to keep this Fernando topped off right now. This is an incredible healer buff, and it's honestly well-deserved for Ying, because Ying doesn't do anything besides heal. She is a healer in the truest sense of the word. She doesn't have any other buffs or debuffs or crowd control that she can apply like so many other supports do, you know, like Maldamba with his stuns, Rei with her ultimate generation, Corvus with his cooldown reduction and lifesteal and movement speed and damage reduction and all that garbage. So, yeah, Ying should be one of the more powerful healers because it's the only thing she does. So, Ying mains rejoice because your healer just got buffed like crazy. This is honestly incredible. And finally, to round off the video, we'll talk about a bug fix which I'm sure a lot of players will appreciate. Androxus's revolver animation has been reverted.
There could be no life without order.
Wow, look at that, that's crazy. It uses the old cursed revolver animation now. That's insane. Wow. I don't care. It was fine either way, but I guess people who were crying about it will no longer be crying about it because this animation has been brought back and it should look much smoother. Although to me, actually, I don't know. Still seems kind of weird. It's whatever. I don't really care. Also, by the way, you can spray the ceiling now and it won't appear inverted. It's facing this way instead of that way. Wow, bug fixes. So yeah, that's going to be the end of this video. If you guys have enjoyed, of course, make sure to drop a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload from me. We're going to be uploading videos on all the new content soon enough, playing proper games with a lot of the balance changes, so you won't want to miss out on any of that. We'll also have some more guides coming. I'm not really sure which ones yet. Maybe we'll do an EV guide at some point, I don't know. But anyways, yeah, just subscribe. We're trying to reach 60K by the end of the year. I would really, really appreciate it very much if you would do that. Also, check out the Twitch channel and the Discord server, both of which are linked in the description down below. We have a wonderful active community of people on Discord, and I stream regularly on Twitch, so you won't want to miss out on either of those. And lastly, if you want to support the channel, please consider checking out my Nexus at nexus.gg/AndrewChicken. There's a new event pass, and of course, with a new event pass, you're going to need to buy some more crystals. So if you want to buy crystals, do it there, and you'll support me in the process for the exact same price as you would pay regularly, at least assuming you're from qualifying countries. So, yeah. But with that being said, thank you guys for watching. I will see you all next time. Peace out.